Hey, Cory.
Hey, Sherri. How's it going, girl?
Good. Here we are for another episode of The Wealth Habits. I know I did this last episode, but I'm still loving just
the episodes,
yeah.
right?
We growing up in here.
We growing.
We up in here changing.
I think we're definitely evolving, right?
Yes.
I don't know about you, but like I've had some really good conversations, right? And I think it's been stimulating my mind about all kinds of aspects and all what possibilities there are out there, right? Which has been really cool, man. So I've been digging this,
Cool. So what we talking about today? What's on the docket today?
Yeah, so, you always talk about the 7 habits, right?
Yes.
And, one of those habits is all about that personal development side, right? Learning how to be more of who you are, right? So change is what I would like to talk about today. Now,
change.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So here's what I know, right? I was reading a book called Relentless, and I think you and I both talked about this book, right?
I love it.
And I think it's
Tim
a
Grover.
beast book. Yeah, it's
Tim
a
Grover.
beast book. But there is parts of the book that I was kind of perplexed on.
Okay.
Right? And he started talking about that people don't change, right? He said that they are who they are, and there's a side of them that they turn on, and he called it the dark side. And so then I was kind of battling with myself about the dark side, right? I'm thinking the dark side, isn't that the bad side, You don't want to feel that, right? Do I want that out?
Right.
And then I remember that proverb about the wolves, like the 2 wolves, and which one you feed more, comes out.
Right.
So then I started thinking, oh my God, is the wolf being fed? Is it the bad side? So it just started becoming this question and this conversation I was having in my own self as I'm reading this book. But now, mind you, as I was reading the book, I was thinking to myself, this is so me, right? Like everything he's talking about, I am that relentless person. I am like all or none. I'm going after it. I just want the grind. But then I don't want the dark side, right? I don't want to be the bad guy, because he talked about the Batman, and so it was an interesting, I guess for lack of a better term, it was an interesting way that he perceived how you become relentless, and that you're not changing, right? You're just becoming better at who you are, right? So today I like to talk about change, right? Do you believe that it actually is changing that you're doing? Like, are you changing in your life, or do you think you are becoming better? Because, my motto, my program is all about be better, right? And so as I kind of listened and thought about that relentless statement, right, I said to myself, am I changing people, or am I making them better at what they are already? Because I think it's the latter. I think that my thought process is all about be better, right? I'm not asking you to go do something that you don't normally want to do, or change what's in your nature, because I do believe that you're going to do what's in your nature.
Yes.
When things get tough, when they get hard, I don't care what kind of representative's been showing up. When it gets hard, you're like, I'm going back to what I know, And so that's kind of where I thought this would be a great conversation to talk a little bit about change.
So I love that. So in unrelated to this, I attended a seminar, and I've heard this quote before. It's attributed to Navy SEALs, but I'll share this version of it. It says, in an emergency situation, we don't rise to the occasion. We default to our level of training.
The default mechanism.
That's
it. And I believe that is so true, because I don't think, I know, and I just know for myself, when you and I talk about habits, right? You work on becoming better. You work on creating these new habits, right? But you and I know, if stuff get crazy, you're like, look, I'm going to do what I got to do. Right. Look, somebody about to get hit up in here, right? I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to evolve, right? But at the end of the day, you're saying that, right?
Right. So, is that girl from back in the country?
Right, in the hood,
right. Can I really, let her go?
Look. Wait, I just want to say this in one part, because, it's so funny. My world, right, is in finance, right?
Yes.
There's not
which is very posh, bro.
Right.
A lot of champagne and polo. Got it. Okay.
But I find myself sometimes, right?
But Brooklyn show up.
It shows up, right? And I'm like, I know he didn't. Okay. Don't let the suit fool you. Okay, right? So I know that, and again, that's that default mechanism, right?
It's funny you should say that, because they haven't been recent, but I have had moments where I've been like, I have not, the comment in my head is, I haven't always been bougie.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Like, you're looking at this veneer
right.
and don't get it twisted. Yeah. Okay, but can people change? So I think it has to do with like how you understand people. So I see people as unlimited. Yep. No matter who they are, whether they're on Skid Row or sitting in the poshest penthouse, that they are 100% unlimited. And I believe that every state of mind is available to every person. But every state of mind has a language, it has a habit, it has a focus. And if you don't adhere to the language, the focus, and the habits that support that state of mind, then it's as if it's not in you. But I believe every state of mind, and when I say state of mind, I mean like living in a state of wealth, living in a state of happiness, living in a state of joy. Right. I feel like that every state of mind is available to everybody.
I agree with that.
So in that sense, I don't know so much if you are, as whether or not you are changing, as you are revealing a facet of yourself. And
or maybe not revealing a facet, but improving that facet. Is that better?
Improving a facet, yeah,
because I guess like what I'm trying to get out of this, right? And I hear what you're saying, because I agree. I think everyone has greatness within them, right? I believe that everyone can be anything they want to be. Your limitations is the only thing that's holding you back from being whatever you want to be.
Your self-imposed limitations.
Exactly. And that self-talk that's in the back of your head that keeps saying you can't, right?
Right.
So I agree with that. But the question, I guess, like I'm trying to wrap my head around more than anything is that the fact of change is change in the sense of how a caterpillar evolves into a butterfly, right? You know, and that's metaphor for, it's the change. Excuse my word, I can't think of the language, right? But it's that moment where he's morphing into something different, right? That's kind of how I see change is, right?
I agree.
But then let's say for my own self.
So then the question is, how do you bring out the butterfly? If you are operating as a caterpillar, how do you bring out the butterfly?
Correct. So it's not, exactly. So that is not necessarily changing, but evolving to who your greater self is.
Absolutely.
Right? Because that's what I think it is, right? Now that we're getting deep about this, right? Okay. You feel me, right?
So in my opinion, that the way that you do that is that you've got to organize your life around great habits.
Agreed. And great people. Because you have to be able to expand your mind enough to know what's out there to be able to see what's there.
Okay. Wait, because there's a quote you gave from Les Brown recently where you said that you cannot see. Right. Give me the quote again.
So you cannot see the picture when you're in the frame.
You cannot see the picture when you're in the frame. And so when you said that, I was like, oh my God, I need to organize my life so that I'm constantly popping myself out of the frame.
Right. Yeah, out of the frame.
And one of the simplest ways that you can do that is by who you put yourself around.
Correct. Right.
Because certain rooms, so this is years ago, I was working at Disney and I was an intern. And there was a young lady who was working in casting from a very wealthy family in Canada. Okay. And I remember somebody who was probably hip to the fact that they were wealthy. They said, yeah, her family is kind of like the Kennedys of Canada. And so that was in the back of my head. And so she got engaged and I was invited to, because I ended up in that circle, and I got invited to the engagement party. So first of all, my country butt, I didn't know you needed to come in black tie. Right. Nobody told me. Hello, pop out of the frame. And so I show up to this property that is in Century City, between Century City Mall and Fox Studios.
I know it well.
That little
golf course that is over the corner, right?
No, not the golf course. Okay. Not the golf course. There's a little cove back there. Let me tell you, this is exaggerated, but it looked like I drove in and everything was just dripping with money, like just money everywhere. And I went in there and I was dressed inappropriately. Everybody was in there with semi-black tie or cocktail attire. I had no idea that was how you were supposed to dress. Felt completely uncomfortable, and at the time I just couldn't stay. I was like, I came in, I was like, yeah, this is not my group right now. And mind you, had I stayed in that circle, it would have continued to pop me out of the frame. And I think being popped out of the frame so that you can see your picture is uncomfortable. Yes. And I think that's why most people never refine or get better, because they are unwilling to come up out of the frame.
Right, and be uncomfortable. No, I think that's exactly it. I think most people, like you said, they... look,
I was deeply aware of how much money they had.
That you didn't
perception, because
right.
they may not. I know a lot of folks that look like they have money or like living check to check, their version of check to check, but perception. And I was very aware of what I didn't have, and at that point, I just wasn't willing to face all that. It's like we have to go back and climb that corporate ladder.
Yeah. So here's the part of that, right? So I love what you said about being uncomfortable, right? I think most human beings, we have a natural mechanism to protect ourselves, right? And because we have that natural desire or ability to say, you know what, if fear is there, danger, we're not gonna even go with it, right? We're not even gonna go to it. So I think what is the one, I guess like the one thing that when I've interviewed successful people, they're always willing to go outside of their comfort to become great, right? And so it's almost like you're, again, feeding the two wolves, right? Trying to figure out, which one do I feed? Do I feed the one that says, be safe, stay where you're at, keep doing what you're doing, it's okay, life is okay being okay, right? But then there's the other one that says, come on.
We need more than that. We need more up in this house.
I don't want to stay in that spot, right?
Right.
And if that's the person that's being fed, then you get the results that you're trying to strive for, right?
Absolutely.
Now, with that all being said, going back to change, which was the question that I asked at the beginning, if you're evolving into the person that you have within you, right? I believe you don't know what you don't know, so you have to be able to expose yourself, right, to things that will give you the greatest opportunity to have more, right?
I agree.
So, how important is it with your circle of friends? Because I think at the end of the day,
I think
you
that's
have
huge.
to be able to let that. There's certain people in your past that you have to let go of. Now, maybe not completely let go, but you need to be able to move past that and move into a different direction or in a different circle so you can grow. Come on, let's talk.
I gotta think about this because I am classic for
holding on. That's my road dog.
No.
Oh no, you're like, I'll cut you in a minute. Sherri will cut someone in a minute.
In a minute. I am very committed to where I believe. Oh, first of all, I believe it's a call on my life.
Right.
So I'm not willing to be anywhere that is out of agreement with the vision that I've been given.
Right.
And I get that some people are there for a season, and I'm willing for the season to end. That's really it. I know that's gonna sound cold. They're gonna hate on me in the comments. Listen, nice. You had your chance to be hated on. I'm gonna be hated on.
So hashtag the season for Sherri. Okay.
It is, and because I have been given a vision for where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
It's more than that, meaning that there are people that I'm supposed to serve.
Right.
And I'm unwilling to play small and basically say no to doing the service that I know is mine to do. And I think that sometimes that creates a lonely space because you have to be willing to let people move on. But sometimes what happens too is just my conversation changes. Mm-hmm. The conversations that we have, I got about like two other people, possibly. I got like two other people, literally, that
we can have this conversation.
Seriously, that can have that kind of conversation where we can go toe to toe, where I'm reading and they're reading as much as I'm reading, or reading more than I'm reading.
Right. That's a big one. Wait, that's a big one though.
So my conversation has pushed a lot of people away because I can't sit and talk about the problems of the world. What I'm talking about is how do I learn money management? How do I correct my money habits? Right. How do I, okay, great. I want to grow in this area. I've got to be better in my health.
Girl, let's just go hang out. We ain't got to do all that.
No. I've never been that person. Now, I'm learning, as we know from the last episode, I'm learning to play more. But I'm super serious. And so I'll tell you something that and I'm not at all comparing myself to him because I think he's just dope on a level that I'm reaching for. But Kobe talks about his Mamba mentality. Yeah. And he talks about how serious he was. And after the game, he would go in the hotel room and he'd have his food and be sitting and watching the game. It's like, there's time for that. No, it's not. I can study this game right now because it's fresh in my mind. I can go back and relive those moments and I can sit and dissect, okay, I should have done this. I should have done that. And so I'm that person. And that kind of makes you weird around people. So I find that I only have about Trey.
Okay, at least you gave one more. You gave one more person an opportunity.
No, you plus two.
Me plus two. Okay. No, that's real. That's real. No, that's real.
Everybody doesn't want to have that conversation. Everybody doesn't want to be that serious. Yeah. When I talk to my mama, this is my conversation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, no, I get that. And
so in that sense, I feel like who you have around you is extremely important, and I think you have to be willing to release people if you want to go where the vision that you've been given. And maybe people haven't been given a vision. Maybe that's it. I think everybody's has a vision for their lives, a divine vision, but everybody may not be listening for that divine vision. And so it's there. It's, they wake up at 60. I don't want to wake up at 60 finding my purpose. I want to know right now.
No, I agree with that. I think, when I look at the bigger scheme of change, right, and I start talking about where do I see myself in a year from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, like in my mind, it's already planned out. I already see the level that I need to be at, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that word relentless it's it for me, right? Yeah. My focus right now is like, I got to go to a whole nother level. It's so funny. I was interviewing Tina D. Lewis on one of my podcasts, and she had made a comment about how, although I'm this quote unquote guru with money and finance, right? She said that she thought my insight should be given and driven towards relationships, right? And the reason why she had said that, and I thought to myself when she said, like, I never really thought about that, right?
Right.
But it was really about, she says, everything you do is about building relationships. And she goes, you build great relationships, right? She said, your relationship with money, your relationship with family, your relationship, how to be a good husband, a good father, right? And she goes, men don't know how to build relationships. And I thought, that was interesting, right?
That's a good perspective.
Yeah, right?
That's a module up
right?
More.
And so when I thought about that, like, it never clicked to me that was a direction, right? It's something I do every day with my wife, my family, the kids, office, that kind of stuff,
and
right?
And because people think of relationships as just being between people.
Right.
As opposed to everything
that you deal with, right. And I think that was a thing because I was like, she's right. Because I know I always go back to my relationship with money, meaning that, I always say it's a living organism.
The money is a living organism, right? Yes.
And I love that because it's about that intention that you take to pour into something that literally deserves to be poured into.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I thought, that's huge, right? That's a huge thing.
Yes.
So one of the things I think that everyone has to figure out if they want to go to another level is, what is your purpose?
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Simon Sinek talks about your why, W-H-Y. But I think more than just your why that drives you, it's your purpose. Like, what do you put on this earth for that is called to you to be more than what you are? And that you owe it to not only yourself, but to everyone who's around you listening.
Yes.
From that aspect. God, what's so funny, Sherri? I'm just thinking about all this that was going through my head right now, right? But I was thinking to me, a gentleman called me the other day to my office, and and I apologize. Like, I could not remember this guy from back in high school. But he called to just, one, say that he's watching me, right? And that he was proud of me, and that I touched his life when we were in high school. And I thought to myself, like, I thought two things. I thought, oh my God, what a great blessing and a gift you gave me by saying that to me, right?
Yes.
Here, 30 years later, kind of conversation,
You've been
right?
in high school 30 years? Okay, go ahead.
Anyways, all right. Don't you got a birthday coming up? Okay, don't start. Okay, but anyway. Okay. But when he said that, right, I was so like taking back the fact that I was like, wow, what did I do?
Right.
That impacted him that much.
Right.
But then I felt on the other side how bad this is that I did not remember him to that same capacity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it helped me realize that you don't know what your purpose is in life, right? But once you start to find what it is, you have to be intentional in all aspects.
Yes.
So like now my thing is I want to be intentional connecting to people, right?
Yes.
I want to be intentional to remember their name and what that experience was, because I believe that that's what's going to help me truly fulfill my purpose, right? And
I would agree with that.
Right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
So in terms of change, I want to go back there because going with Tim Grover, because I remember that part of the book and it rubbed me the wrong way because I believe you can change,
You like
right?
the dark side. I was like,
and the dark side piece, that was a whole other piece. I was like, boy, how do I integrate this? I got the Bible right here, Relentless right here.
Like
I'm like, how do I put these two
right.
together? But having had some distance now between when I read the book and now, I have come to believe that what changes is not so much you as your language, as your habits, as your beliefs, because the scripture says it's done unto you according to your belief. So it's my belief that draws out the aspect of me that the world sees. And so as my belief changes, that aspect changes. And so maybe you don't change, your soul doesn't really change, but as your beliefs change, you bring out different aspects of your soul. You bring different aspects of yourself.
New philosophy.
Right, to the forefront, right. So you get to see sides of yourself. And to me, that's what language is about, right? In fact, I feel like that's what school is for. I don't feel like school is to get a job. And I think that people who go to school to get a job miss the whole equation, right?
Yeah.
That's a byproduct. But really what it is that I've got this capability. I have the ability I'm spatially gifted, right? So I was a math and science person. I was an engineering major. And so what the language of engineering helps me to do is to articulate that aspect of my soul.
Right.
What the language of calculus helps me to do is to articulate that aspect of my soul. And so learning, in my opinion, is for the purpose of articulating this potential. Because while it sits inside of me, it has no form, it has no shape, it has no dimension, it has no texture, and it doesn't start to look like something until I begin to use some words to bring it out into expression. And so from an engineer, it turns into a bridge, or it turns into a building, or it turns into some other type of structure. Or for me, I was an electrical engineer, it turns into, those uses. So to me, that's what learning is about. It's about bringing out a different aspect of yourself. So in that sense, I guess I do agree with Tim Grover that you don't change, but I do think your words have to change, your habits have to change, your behaviors have to change, your beliefs have to change. Everything that you show to the world has to change.
So maybe it's the word change from the definitional context, right? That we're saying what we believe change is. Maybe we're trying to find a different vocabulary for it, right? And we're different describing our adjective and be able to describe what it actually is, right?
Right.
Because maybe in that regards is we understand that we're trying to evolve into a different self, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we are still true to ourselves, right? And so, look, I done got deep on you.
I know. You didn't just run up something else I wrote. Hold on.
So while you were looking that up, let me get this thought out of my head here. So I think, in all honesty, it's really about us saying that, one, we start to realize who we are as an internal person. 2, we go in from learning who we are to now to expand on, because of our circumstances, our surrounding, the people that we actually involve ourselves with, we now take those insights and those different types of experiences that then in turn help us to grow or evolve into a new self, right? And then from that being your new self, you then take that to the level to where now you're trying to evolve and find purpose to how to share and to help others become who they are.
Yes.
Man, come on. Let me go on home now, man.
Yeah, pass the plate.
The brain was working on that one. Shoot.
Okay. Let me
I got Sire going. I got that one, Cory. That's a call out.
Right.
Okay. I got a deep. Okay, yeah.
So let me share this. I wrote this March 4th. So what's today? 6th. Okay, it's 2 days ago. So one is that, because we said money is a living organism, and I said money is a language.
Yes.
Meaning of prosperity is a language. Yes. So every state of mind has its own language that you have to learn to inhabit it. If you don't know the language of prosperity, you can't live there.
All right.
When you learn a new language, there's a season when you're learning, but you cannot yet think in the new language.
Did you write this?
Yeah, this is my words.
Man, what the heck?
You know I was dope.
Come on. That might have been a good one. You might have sent me that one. I like that little line.
You have to translate back into the tongue you know to think of what to say. So it was like that for me when I was learning French. I couldn't think in French, so I would hear a sentence in French and I would have to translate it back into English to think of how to say it in French.
Let me just say on a side note, Sherri is the type of woman that don't go and take Spanish like everybody else and shit. She goes takes French, okay? I'm just trying to throw that out there, okay? So she was already at that point. I'm going to that next level.
Right.
Wherever the wealth is, that's where I'm at.
Right. And so if I had kept studying French, I would have reached a point where I could think in French, and wouldn't have to go back to English to communicate.
Right.
And that's what happens in prosperity. We have learned the language of lack so well, speaking to myself, so well that we have a season of going back and forth between the language of lack and abundance. And some of us give up before we learn to think in the language of abundance. Part of what made it easy for me to give up learning French is that I didn't have French-speaking people around me. So there was nobody to talk to. I had no one to practice my French-speaking skills with. How many times have we dropped the language of prosperity because we don't have anyone to talk to or to interact with? Prosperity is my native tongue, but I have been educated out of it. But as I learn to speak my native language, there's going to be a season where I'm translating back and forth between lack and prosperity before I learn to think in my native tongue and drop the lack language altogether. And so there may be a season where I am not around other prosperity speakers, and I have to have the courage to talk prosperity anyway until I get around other prosperity speakers.
You just sent me that. That was kind of good. I kind of like that one. Yeah. You know, that's you know what you said. That was good, Sherri. Okay, and let me tell you why I say that was good.
So, listen, did I get another note?
Yeah. You can put a notch in the wall on that one.
I'm going to knock on the growth chart because sister is trying to grow. I'm trying to be. Let me state it here. Let me state it here so that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it'll be on record. I really see myself as an international transformation agent, changing people all over the world, speaking around the world in different countries.
Speak it so it comes true.
There you go. That's it. So yeah,
look, here's what I got out of that. And the one thing that really stood out to me when you said was the prosperity language, right? And you're very right in the sense that too many times people will, for lack of a better term, dumb down their conversation to fit in with the society that they're with at that time. Instead of coming down, why not elevate up and make them rise to the occasion?
Right.
So now you're giving them the insight on how to have more, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the prosperity language, I think that's brilliant because you're saying to someone, if you want prosperity in your life, right, you need to speak the language to understand what prosperity is.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Yay. Come on. You know, baby, turn another podcast on. Come on. Yeah. No, that was a good one, Sherri. I like that one.
But I got it. I was like, because you cannot, that came off of the fear thing, right? Yeah. That it was the fear in my language and the fear of like, when is the next thing going to come?
Yeah.
But you can't even afford to have that thought.
Yeah.
You got to.
That's real. That's real.
You got to let that thought go.
Right. Because if you don't let it go, then you're not leaving any room for positive things to come into your life. I think you had said it to me. I know when I was talking about my program, Be Better, right? And we were talking about giving more and having more, which should come first, right? You gave me some knowledge on that. Because you were like, you got to give it away so you can be able to give more, right? And I was like, that's kind of good. Okay. I gotta let room out, right? I gotta open up my mind and give away things first, so I can receive. So there's room to come more, right? I remember my pastor, used to tell me, and Cecil L. Murray, when he used to be in charge of Fame, and I remember he had said something to me, and I remember it stuck with me. He said, "You cannot receive something when your hands are closed," right? That was big, and it was one of those statements. It was so simple, but he was like, right? How do I shake your hand if my hand is closed?
Right.
How do I receive $1 if my hand is closed?
Yes.
How do I catch somebody if my hands are closed?
Yes.
I gotta open up to be able to catch it.
Yes.
I was like, come on.
And some people are closed in multiple areas of their lives.
Yes. It's closed-minded. Come on, let's not even go there because
that's why I had to stop being smart. That's why, and the real talk.
I know it all. I know.
That's what I'm saying. I had to stop being smart.
Right?
You cannot fill a full cup. And so I had to stop being smart. My identity was tied into being smart. I had gone through school. I'm the number one girl in this, the number one girl in that, the valedictorian here. And it was like, but that doesn't get you anywhere. Only if you're open at the top, right? But most times in the way that we educate people is that we make them shameful for what they don't know.
Right.
And so you're constantly trying to hide what you don't know, and you're like,
and you're relying on your voice and your strongest.
You ducking and dodging, trying to get information.
Yeah.
And it's like, that don't work. No, let me let you know. I don't know how to manage money. Come show me.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how to have a relationship. Show me. That's why I joke, about hanging around you and Delilah, but really, I'm hanging around studying. How do you do this?
Right.
Did I call you on the phone? I called you on the phone. I said, Cory, tell me about your relationship.
Yep.
How y'all?
Right.
Because I'm a student.
Yeah. But
listen, if I don't have the evidence of a companion, that means I don't have the consciousness for the companion. I could lie to myself.
I got it covered.
Right. Or I could just tell the truth and get help. And I find that, and this was a big thing because it's vulnerable to be open and say what you don't know.
Right.
Because you risk the possibility of somebody shaming you for what you don't know.
Right.
And I have decided that I'm willing to have the shame if that's what comes in order to have what I want. The
rewards, right. So I think, going back to what you just said there is you have to find out what's most important to you. Right? Because I think once you find out the things that are important to you, then you can choose which one gives you more value. Right? Because is it the fear that's holding you back, and the fear of someone saying that you did X or didn't do X, or you look silly saying what you said, or your opinion didn't matter? Is that story that you're hearing is more important than the other story that says, you know what? I am great. I am the best. I can do more. I can go to another level.
Right.
I do see greater in my life. It's like you have to be able to, one, know that there's a difference. To be able to get to the point where you're saying, I deserve that,
right?
And I think that's what most people miss that, right? Like we get caught up in our own world of stuff, right? And we forget that we're supposed to have abundance. Who says we can't? Right? Who told you that you needed to be mediocrity was the way to go? So I gotta be mediocre? No, that's not me.
This may surprise people, but I study everybody. Let me say that. Okay, but I'm gonna tell you somebody who, whenever I see any podcast with him on it, I watch it. Is Master P. Okay, this might surprise a lot of people, but I'm from the South. There's something about him just resonates with me. That brother forever coming up with a product and sharing it and constantly growing. And one of his questions is that, so he has a new product. This is going to sound crazy. And this is not shade to him because I think what he's doing is awesome for his audience. Rap noodles. head.
Oh my God.
No, don't. We laughing. He was like, it's a multi-billion,
right?
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that we're funding. And he said, why we can't have a piece of that money? And that rings in my head in regards to everything. Why we can't have a piece of that money.
Yeah, no.
So I think I'm not saying go buy rap noodles.
Right. We're endorsing this on the podcast today. No. But that's real talk, Sherri. I think that's real. I think, So just to summarize, kind of going back.
Yes. So can you change?
Can you change?
So
right?
maybe we're saying the soul doesn't change, but the beliefs that you have change, so you bring out a different aspect.
Right.
Because you're already all that you ever could be, but it's whether or not it's showing forward. Okay.
Right. And I think we're saying also that using a different vocabulary, a different adjective to describe it, even though the term change means to evolve or do something differently, we're basically saying to ourselves, we have it in ourselves, right?
Yes.
And all we have to do is find out how to evolve into what it is, right? I think the other thing that we talked a little bit about is about purpose, right?
Yes.
Knowing that in life, in order to do more, you have to be able to serve more.
Absolutely.
Right? And finding that internal side of you that is looking for that greatness, right?
Absolutely.
And then last but not least, I would probably say along the lines of being okay to give yourself permission, right? To be able to want better, want more, and it's okay to do that.
And to be able to learn whatever it is you need to learn to have it. Because you don't have it because you don't know how to have it.
That's right.
So there has to be that openness to go get the information, to say I don't know.
And then the last, I guess, would be find out which one you're going to feed more of, right? Is it the fear you're going to feed more into, or are you going to feed into the thing that's going to drive to greatness?
Yeah.
Right? Shoot. All right, now that was a good talk today, Sherri.
Yes.
All right, I like that.
Yes,
well, guys, thank you so much once again coming out to Wealth Habits.
Yes.
As Sherri always says,
if all you got is money, you are not winning.
Come on now. Have a good day.
Except